The rain never truly stopped in London anymore. It was a constant, miserable drizzle, a grey sheet over a grey city. Famous buildings like St. Paul's were just shapes in the mist. You could feel the silence. It was heavy. People moved like ghosts, their faces blank. They hurried, avoiding eye contact. This was the new normal. A quiet dread hung in the air, and every drop of rain seemed to whisper of sorrow. The vibrant pulse of the old city was gone, replaced by a muted, fearful heartbeat that echoed in the empty streets. They called it the Kingdom of Britannia now. The Union Jack still flew, but it was different. A dark crown sat in its center, a symbol of the new power. The old government was gone. Whispers in the dark spoke of a swift, brutal change. There were no newspapers to tell the real story, only the official broadcasts full of cheerful lies. The kingdom promised order, it promised purity, but it delivered fear. The colors of the flag itself seemed dimmer, drained of their former vibrancy, reflecting the mood of the nation it now represented. I remember looking out of my small window. The view was just another brick wall, another gray sky. Freedom felt like a dream from a past life. Simple things were gone, a walk in the park, a chat with a neighbor. Now every word was careful, every glance measured. The radio droned on about duty, about sacrifice, about the glory of Britannia. My flat was clean, quiet. It was a perfectly kept cage, its bars polished by loneliness and the constant underlying hum of anxiety that never ceased. It had started with the storms, then the blight. Food became scarce, the old world crumbled. Then came the news of the babies. So few were born healthy, so few were born at all. The government said it had a plan, a way to save Britannia, the Britannia Purity Act, they called it. For the good of the nation, for the future of our race. They said it was necessary, they said it was right. We learned too late what necessary truly meant. The promises of salvation masked a terrifying agenda of control. In this new kingdom, women were categorized. There were the wives, of course, married to the powerful men. They ran the households, many pretending everything was fine. Then there were the daughters. That's what they called us. We were the fertile ones. Our purpose was simple. We were vessels for the future of Britannia. Our individuality was stripped away. We wore plain, muted dresses, perhaps a dark, sad tartan, a symbol of a heritage now twisted to serve this grim new purpose. We were walking wombs, our lives valued only for what our bodies could produce. The matrons were the enforcers, stern women, often from the old middle classes. They believed in the kingdom, or perhaps they just enjoyed the power. Their faces were hard, their eyes missed nothing. They taught us the rules, the endless, suffocating rules. They spoke of duty, of piety, of a woman's place. Their uniforms were severe, dark grey, almost black, like crows. They moved with a chilling authority, their very presence a reminder of the rigid control that governed every aspect of our existence. They were the architects of our obedience. Men called protectors patrolled the streets. They wore dark green, like gamekeepers on a vast, sorrowful estate. They were less obvious than Gilead's guardians, more understated, but always there, always watching. They maintained order, dealt with dissent, swiftly, quietly. You learned to look through them, to pretend they weren't there. Their silent vigilance was a constant pressure, a reminder that any misstep could have terrible consequences. They were the quiet fist of the regime, ensuring compliance through an ever-present threat. At the top were the consuls, the new leaders, men from the old establishment, politicians, businessmen, military figures. They lived in grand houses, houses taken from others. They spoke of national revival, of restoring British greatness. They hosted polite, joyless dinners, quoting Shakespeare and the Bible, their words hollow. Their hypocrisy was a silent, bitter joke among those who served them. They were the architects of this new order, cloaking their tyranny in the language of patriotism and tradition, while their actions sowed despair. The Tower of London stood by the Thames. Its stones held centuries of history, kings and queens, prisoners and traitors. Now it had a new, dark purpose. It was a place of interrogation, a place of re-education. Whispers said it was a place of no return. The famous black ravens still hopped on the green, but they no longer felt like guardians of the crown. They felt like omens. Their croaks echoed the silent screams within the ancient walls. The tower's grim past was being actively, chillingly relived under the kingdom's rule. Tea, that most British of rituals, continued, but it was tainted. Matrons would serve weak, insipid tea during our indoctrination sessions, a pale imitation of comfort. The consuls and their wives, they had the good tea, the expensive blends from before. It became another symbol, a mark of status, a small cruelty. Sometimes a daughter would be offered a cup by a wife, a test of composure, a moment of forced, fragile civility in a world stripped of genuine kindness. The clinking of teacups became a soundtrack to our suppressed anxieties. The famous British stiff upper lip, keep calm and carry on, that spirit was now a weapon used against us. To complain was to be unpatriotic, to show distress was weakness, to question was treason. So, people endured, silently, their faces were masks, their emotions buried deep. This national trait, once a source of strength, became a tool for societal self-policing. Fear ensured that the silence was rarely broken. The ability to suffer quietly was perversely celebrated by the regime. England's green and pleasant land. The poets wrote about it, painters captured its beauty. Now the countryside was different. It was divided, sectioned off, vast agricultural zones worked by forced labor. Some fertile women, the daughters, were sent to rural birthing manors. Isolated, guarded, their sole purpose to produce children for the state. The romantic image of the English countryside was shattered, replaced by a landscape of control and exploitation. The rolling hills now seemed to hide unspeakable sorrows. Gilead in America had its fervent Old Testament God. Britannia had something else, a twisted Anglicanism perhaps mixed with a fierce nationalist ideology, less about scripture, more about for king and country, for the glory of Britannia. The consuls spoke of destiny, of a chosen people, but their God was the state. Their prayers were pledges of allegiance. This new faith was colder, perhaps more about duty and sacrifice than fire and brimstone. It demanded conformity, not through fear of God, but fear of being deemed an enemy of the kingdom. The ceremony, as they called it in Gilead, existed here too, but it felt different, colder, more clinical. Less of the strange religious theater, more like a grim state-mandated medical procedure, performed with a chilling British reserve. The Bible might not even be present. Perhaps a Book of Britannia lay on the bedside table instead, filled with patriotic slogans and twisted histories. The act itself was a violation, devoid of humanity, a mechanical duty for the continuation of the regime, leaving emptiness in its wake. Resistance simmered beneath the surface. Small acts of defiance, a forbidden book passed in secret, a whispered joke about a consul. Perhaps old wartime codes were revived, used to pass messages, tiny sparks of rebellion in the overwhelming darkness. The spirit of the Blitz, some said. But this enemy was within. It wore a familiar face. It spoke with a familiar accent. This made it harder, more dangerous. Yet, the human need for freedom, however faint, flickered stubbornly in hidden corners. The rain continued to fall on the kingdom of Britannia. It washed the streets clean, but it could not wash away the fear or the despair. The future looked like a long, grey road, stretching into an endless, misty horizon. The crown, once a symbol of history and continuity, was now the emblem of this new, terrible order. Hope was a dangerous luxury. The silence in the streets, in the homes, was the loudest sound of